Okay, so imagine a city where the political map is shifting so dramatically that your voting booth could move, your local councillor might change overnight, and the community you thought you belonged to suddenly feels like a different universe. That's exactly what's happening in Johannesburg right now. And no, this isn't some sci-fi plot twist. It's all about demographics, power, and the quiet war over who gets a voice in shaping the future. Let me break this down because trust me, it's way more fascinating than it sounds. Let's start with the big picture. Johannesburg's electoral boundaries are being redrawn, and almost every ward in the city is affected. Now sure, boundary changes happen everywhere, right? But here's what makes this different. The forces driving this shift are two opposing demographic tides. On one side, you've got the northern suburbs exploding with growth, townhouses, security estates, informal settlements popping up everywhere. On the other, Soweto, a historic heartland, is losing population density. And this isn't just about numbers. It's about power, identity, and who gets to call the shots when election day rolls around. Now, the government agency in charge claims this is purely technical. They use this 15% rule. If a ward's voter count deviates by more than 15% from the city average, they have to redraw it. Sounds fair, right? But here's where it gets messy. When you're moving entire neighborhoods between wards, you're not just shifting lines on a map, you're altering political dynamics. Imagine waking up and realizing your local councillor is now someone you've never even heard of, because your suburb got lumped into a new voting district. That's happening to thousands of people right now. Let me zoom in on the northern suburbs for a second. Places like Fourways and Midrand are booming. New developments are popping up like mushrooms after rain. But this growth creates a problem. Too many voters in one ward. So the solution? Chop up communities and redistribute them like political puzzle pieces. But here's the kicker. When you split a suburb like Blairgowrie, you're not just balancing voter numbers, you're creating ripple effects. Suddenly, residents are arguing over which ward makes more sense geographically, which councillor should handle their potholes, and whether their voices are even heard anymore. And let me tell you, those technical decisions? They often smell suspiciously like political chess moves. Now flip the coin and look at Soweto. For decades, this area has been a stronghold for certain parties. But as younger generations move out or demographics shift, those once solid voting blocks are thinning out. The board has to compensate by expanding ward boundaries to suck in voters from surrounding areas. But this isn't neutral territory. When you redraw a ward to include new communities, you're diluting existing power structures. Some people see this as a necessary adjustment. Others smell an attempt to weaken historical strongholds. And honestly, both sides have a point. This isn't just about fairness, it's about control. But wait, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Gerrymandering. Yes, that dirty word where boundaries get manipulated to favor specific parties. The board swears they're apolitical, but come on. Even small tweaks can swing elections in a city where coalitions rise and fall on razor-thin margins. Take Ward 117 for example. Originally, they wanted to swallow a huge chunk of Blairgowrie, but residents pushed back. So they compromised. Now that ward includes a smaller section, but the debate highlights how even minor changes can become battlegrounds. And here's something most people don't realize. These adjustments don't just affect election day. They shape which communities get resources, whose issues get prioritized, and who feels represented or ignored for years to come. And then there's the human impact. Let's not forget the average resident trying to navigate this chaos. Imagine discovering you're in a new ward only when you show up to vote, or realizing your local councillor now represents 3 times as many people. Service delivery gets complicated when a single ward stretches from Fordsburg to Coronationville. How do you even address potholes in 2 completely different neighborhoods? Activists like Iqbal Kaji are sounding alarms about this. When boundaries become unwieldy, accountability disappears. And honestly, that's the scariest part. These maps aren't just lines on paper. They're blueprints for who gets heard, who gets services, and who gets left behind. So where does this leave us? Johannesburg's boundary debate isn't just about technical adjustments. It's a symptom of deeper urban transformation. Cities are living entities, constantly evolving, and our political systems struggle to keep pace. But here's my take. When demographic shifts are this dramatic, The real question isn't about numbers or formulas. It's about transparency. It's about ensuring communities aren't just moved around like pawns, but are active participants in shaping their political future. Because at the end of the day, a ward boundary isn't just a line, it's a lifeline connecting people to power. And in a city as dynamic as Joburg, that conversation is far from over. What do you think? Is this really just technical neutrality? Or are these boundary changes hiding deeper political motives? Drop your thoughts below. Let's get this conversation started.